Welcome back to Michigan Gardener. We have a busy month ahead. First order of business is to start eradicating an invasive species that we have on our property and that lots of people around here have. It's called an autumn olive. It's an Asian bushy shrub. It can grow up to like 20 feet by 20 feet. Takes over everything. It's very prickly, thorny. It doesn't have anything that keeps it in check around here. So the plan is to pull out as many as we can and replace them with native species.
It's March 2nd and I'm going to start planting my seeds. I like to grow my garden from seeds. That way I know exactly what I'm getting and I can pick strong plants and weed out weak ones and only put the best of the best out. This year I'm going to do a tomato shootout. Last year I planted a bunch of different varieties. The clear winner was Old German. Best tomato I've ever had. And I grew beefsteaks and super beefs and brandywines, and I grew a tomato called Health Kick, which was like a plum tomato that I didn't like. I also grew San Marzanos and just a ton of different tomatoes, but the Old German was hands away the best. So we're picking all new varieties this year for the challenge. I'm going to do Cherokee Purple, Black Man Sea tomato, which is a interesting heirloom type variety. I'm doing one that was made at Rutgers in 1968 called the Ramapo Hybrid. I got these from Rohrer Seeds. I'm doing Ananas Noir tomato, and those are really interesting looking, and a lot of people that have grown these said they were fantastic. And finally, I'm doing the Rutgers 250 tomato, so I'm super excited about that. And I'll tell you more about these varieties as they start coming due. I don't want to blow the whole season's content of education in one episode, so you'll just have to wait to hear about each of these varieties. So this is my invasive species burn pile. This is all the stuff that we've managed to pull out and cut down that shouldn't be here from fall of last year until mid-March. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, and I've got a little tinder box here and we're gonna just stuff this back in there. Got some of these little homemade or pre-made like tinder plugs for lighting the grill. These should help get these sticks going. Anytime you're burning, real important that you've got water. So I have running water right here in a hose. There's no wind today. The ground is all wet, and it's supposed to snow and rain tomorrow, so this is a good window to burn this. Now with burning this and then tilling it into the garden, that's probably the oldest form of agriculture known. And it's still being practiced today. I was watching a documentary on some rice farmers in, I think, northwestern Mongolia, and they sent a couple of the kids out to go find a new rice paddy. They were kind of in a mountainous region, but there are some areas where they could potentially plant rice. And these were like fields that they let go fallow after a few years, that you start getting reduced yields, and then it grows back up, grows little trees, grows grass and things, and then you just come back and burn it, and that adds nutrients back into the soil. So wood ash, which is what this is going to be, adds a lot of calcium, and it also adds it makes the soil slightly more alkaline. So you wouldn't want to do this and till it into like blueberries and other plants that require a lot of acid. But tomatoes really like that calcium. And so that's where I'm putting the tomatoes this year, because I'll get to it later, but you have to do crop rotation with tomatoes. Anyway, let's burn it. Now that we've got the spring burning done, I've taken and raked in the ashes, or just kind of spread them out, and now it's time to do some tilling. I'm also going to be tilling in some feed that's really good for tomatoes. This is an actual Ferrari, legit Ferrari. Ferrari and Lamborghini both make tractors and other things like that. In this particular one, you can have multiple attachments on it. Right now it's got a rear tiller, but this control thing can turn around, and you can put on the front a snow blower, or you can put sickle mower, all kinds of different attachments you can get for these things. And it's really meant for gardening in terraces where you don't have room to put like a full-size tractor. This thing does the job. I rent it, obviously. I think to buy one of these is about $5 grand. But it is literally the single best tiller I have ever used in my life. And so let's get started. Well, here we are. We at least tripled the size of the tilled area this year. Lots and lots and lots of cool stuff coming. Next, I need to protect this plot from deer. All right, Bambi is going to stay the hell out of here this year. I've put in a 3-wire electric fence called a 3D electric fence, and the reason it's 3D is there's actually 2 fences here, one with the wire at 2 feet, and the second fence is 3 feet inside of that, and it's got a wire at 1 foot and a wire at 3 foot. And the thinking is that it confuses them with their depth perception, and they get something called landing anxiety. This is what pretty much every ag department recommends using if you want to keep deer out of an area, is a 3D electric fence, and I've set that up, so I'll show you some of the details. The first thing to notice is this little thing right here, those little bobber things. I'll explain about that. So those little things on there are called deer pops, and it's by deerbusters.com, and basically what it is this here is a length of poly wire, so it's electric fence wire, and it's connected on the inside to a galvanized washer, and all of that is set into a muffin tin, and there's cotton inside. So you hang these on the electric fence, and this is electrified. Now, the reason it's called a deer pop is you buy some of this stuff, which is a miracle thing called Deer Buster Deer Pop Drops, and it smells like caramel apples. So I did an overkill. I just put them all over the place, and like 100 yards that way, it still smells like caramel apples out here. And the reason you want to do this is you have to train them to avoid that fence. You don't want them just accidentally walking into it and getting shocked. You want them to actually, with their own little deer brains, notice that fence, go up to it, and get shocked. And you have to put this up well in advance of when you would want to grow stuff in there, because if they're not trained by the time you have stuff growing in there and they're hungry, they'll probably try to trample your fence and screw everything up. So we're going to train them now, and in a couple months when it's time to have veggies growing in there, then they'll know to stay out. So I'm going to show you just a couple more things about this fence. So this here is the charging unit for the fence, and this one's good for 5 miles and it puts out 0.1 joules. It's got a solar panel on it and a 6-volt battery inside, and you have to have it up for 3 days prior to charging the fence with the power off, so that it has time to build up enough charge. This sends out a shock through these wires every, I don't know, 3 or 4 seconds, and it makes all the deer happy when they get shocked. So to set this up, you've got a wire that goes from the ground thing, which is green, all the way down to a grounding post, and that grounding post is 6 feet long, copper coated steel, and then 10 feet that way there's another one, and 10 feet beyond that is another one. The company recommends 3 grounding posts 10 feet apart, so that this really efficiently delivers a good shock. And then from the positive terminal of this, or the red one, it comes down and connects to this fence right here, the first one. Then another wire goes from this fence over to the bottom one, and then back up top to energize the top one. And it's really that simple. You just wrap your wire around these little connectors and just make sure nothing's touching them. You'll notice I have some weed barrier fabric down along here, and that's because we're going to put mulch down over the top of it so that we don't get weeds and things growing up and potentially grounding out the fence. So every few days I'll have to come out just to make sure that nothing's screwing with it. The other thing I anticipate is that this wire will slacken a bit over time, and I'll have to go through and tighten things up. There's a switch on the bottom of the charging unit that you can turn on and off pretty easily, but to get in and out of here, I've installed basically electric fence gate wires, and so this has a metal thing going all the way through it and connects there and connects there, and you can undo it like so and go through and then hook it back up. And so for each wire right here, there's one of those, so we can easily get in and out of the garden. And really that's all there is to it. I'll give a report of any activity out here. I very much doubt that I'm going to get any film of a deer getting shocked, but in all of this fresh dirt that we just tore up, there are no deer tracks right now, and there's none in there because I just tilled it. So we'll see.
All right, so we planted some dahlias from seed on March 2nd, and initially when you plant from seed, you will see a pair of false leaves emerge, and then once your seedlings start getting extra sets of leaves, then they're often ready to be potted on. We are going to carefully tease some of these seedlings out and put them into segmented trays that will go into the garden in probably 2 months' time. You want to always make sure that you pick the largest, most healthy plants. You want to make sure that you always take the plant by one of the lowest leaves on it. You take some kind of an instrument like a pencil or a butter knife or a chopstick, and you just gently start to tease it out of the compost. You never want to grab the stem, because if you crush the stem, you will kill the seedling. A leaf will regrow. Okay, so I have filled these about half full with compost, and all you do is just gently set your seedling in. Make sure that it's pretty straight. Gently fill in the module with a little bit more compost, gently firm it in a bit, and voila, you have potted on your seedling. We'll be sure to give these a gentle watering in and mark them.
The indoor greenhouse seems to be serving its purpose really well this year. Had pretty good germination rates on most things, and the plants seem to be nice and healthy under this light. The only thing I had to replant is only 1 out of 12 old Germans came up. So I replanted those today, and none of the Mirasols came up, so I also replanted those. We're right on track to have a nice garden from seed this year.
Right here we have one of my favorite springtime plants. It's called a hellebore or a Lenten rose. It's an evergreen plant. It grows on the edge of woodlands most commonly. Hellebores have adapted to wet spring conditions by pointing their blooms downward. This keeps the pollen dry. They are very attractive to early spring pollinators and a beautiful addition to your garden. They come in a variety of colors. This one is in the pink family. Others include black, white, speckled, light green, yellow, and so on.
Added a new piece of equipment this year. It's a big shredder. Can do up to 4-inch sticks, but I doubt we'll need to do that. I haven't started it, but the shop assured me that it runs. The first thing I'm going to do is shred up some pine branches, and we're going to use the pine branches to mulch around the blueberry bushes. So blueberry bushes like acidic soil, and this isn't going to acidify the soil right away. Basically what the mulch is going to do is keep some weeds down, and then the other thing it's going to do is over time it'll get broken down and rot and carried down into the soil by worms and just kind of gradually acidify it. But one thing we have pretty much every year is a Christmas tree, so we should probably always have this kind of mulch available in the springtime, which is when you want to put it out. So let's see if we can start it and keep our head and arms clear. And that's it for the March edition of Michigan Gardener. Watch for it in April. There's going to be a lot of stuff to do.